Welcome to another installment in the Virtual Journey video series to assist you in the exciting new path of creativity and thinking beyond the box. In this installment, we'll be looking at spontaneous virtually. You may be wondering, can we do all three types virtually? Yes, we can. It is currently the way the world is spinning, and spontaneous can spin with the rest of the world online. We talked about several different platforms that can be used with Teams in another video in this series, but for spontaneous, it might be helpful to revisit just a few. The first is video conferencing. This is a great platform for all three different types of spontaneous problems. While practicing verbal problems, the team can either give their responses using their voice or using the chat box to type in their responses and collect all those responses in one location. When practicing verbal hands-on or hands-on, team members will need to see each other and their creations. Examples of this platform is Zoom or WebEx. Second is phone conferencing. This is a great tool when your team just needs to give verbal responses or they need to have a conversation about something while using their computers. Examples of this platform are FaceTime or Google Hangouts. These are just a few though, so be sure and check out the list on the first video. Third are central drives. This is a great location for teams to type in and contribute at the same time in one document to see them all happening. Examples of this might be Google Drives. So let's spont virtually. Let us say before we dive into spontaneous that currently Odyssey of the Mind is hard at work developing and fine-tuning the virtual competition. Last season, during Virtual World Finals, teams were given a process to participate in verbal spontaneous that was new and exciting, so we have based our suggested progression of practicing verbals to support that path. But as many of you may know, spontaneous is never the same twice. The following ways of practicing at this time are simply suggestions, and we have to wait and see what the spontaneous future holds. So let's jump off into verbal spontaneous. Let's get the spontaneous minds fired up with verbal. Gather up that team and get online, or even try getting on the phones. Try something like FaceTime to get your team talking together. This is also a great time to give a reminder to your team that they will need to take turns so everyone can be heard. We don't want to miss one of those amazingly creative responses if everybody's talking at the same time. Also, let's get used to using those phones. We might be starting to use our computers for other uses later on, which we'll talk about. Practice doing some verbal problems using their voices, just like in person. Let's just get those creative juices flowing. Here below, you'll see a few quick practice verbals that you can try with your team. Let's amp up the experience by bringing in the use of computers with the phones. This will bring a twist to verbals that happens online. We've been using our voices to share responses via FaceTime or video conferencing. Now let's practice getting responses all in one place for the team to look at together. Start a Drive document for students to type their answers into. Or on video conferencing, have the students type the answers into the chat box. If students are too young to type, that's okay. The coach can help, but needs to be a scribe only. Record exactly what the team member says. Do this a few times before you elevate to the next step. The team is practicing to get comfortable with the process and the tools. So when it's time to shine at competition, the focus is on the creative solution only. Next, your team has all these lists of creative responses. Now let's rank. Looking at this amazing list of responses, now the team needs to decide which ones are the most creative. If the team got to pick which responses they thought the most creative ones were, what would they pick? It's like saying to the judge, Look at these. They are amazing. Try grouping them together in groups of 5. First 5 are out of this world. The next 5 are excellent. The next 5, they're good, and so on. But have the team eventually eliminate 10 they think might just be okay or common. Teams can use central drives for this process. All team members then can make changes or movements in the same place. Have the team talk about it as a team. The team needs to decide, not one individual or a couple individuals, but the team. During practice, have conversations with the team to see what they think is creative. This is where you practice seeing what's most creative versus common. This will allow teams to develop thinking about the most creative responses and moving away from common. No matter what the platform is or the format or problems used in virtual spontaneous, creative thinking will always be a great superpower for your team to have. We want those judges to be blown away by the responses, and creativity is the way to blow the minds of the judges. So, quick review on the steps of verbal. So, you'll ask the question, give thinking time, collect responses. As a team, responses are ranked most creative to common, and create teamwork and creativity. Let's mix it up a little and throw in a verbal hands-on. Verbal hands-on problems are a great way to hear amazing stories and to get the team using materials or items. So, prior to practice, have each team member gather an item or items, something like listed below. Don't worry if they're not exactly the same. It might give the team an opportunity to be even more creative. Working in the moment is a major component of spontaneous. Next, get that team online or using those phones again so they can see each other. Try something like Zoom or FaceTime. Now, let's start practicing. Let's do some verbal hands-on problems using their voices. Here's a few quick problems that they can try. Let's review the steps for verbal hands-on. First, coach, if they're using video conferencing, be sure and push that record button before they start. Ask the question. Give thinking and development time, and make sure your team knows they can talk during that time. Team members give their responses to the prompts and items. Play back the recording for the team. Have them decide what's creative or common, and then celebrate your teamwork and creativity. Next, hands-on. What? Hands-on? Yes, we can do hands-on too. Let's have some fun with it. Doing hands-on virtually will give your team a chance to grow as a team and to share creativity using their hands and developing something 3D. We've been staring at screens a lot, so we all need to move and create, so let's do it. Prior to practice, have each team member gather the items that they'll need to use in the solution, or you could have your team members come by to get a package of materials off your front porch prior to practice. Second, get online or phone with your team as a group. Video conferencing might be the best platform for leaving hands free to take action. Team members will also need to be able to see each other. Make sure everyone has their materials and space to work and that you can see them. Now, let's practice doing a hands-on problem. Here's a sample idea. Okay, in the middle, you can see materials list. So they already have those. So this is a two-part problem. In part 1, they'll have 4 minutes to build. You will each need to build a structure that is as long as possible with the materials provided. It will hold a ping pong ball, which is provided, and the ping pong ball cannot touch the surface. In the second part, you will then tell how your section will connect to another team member section. Each section can only be used once, and all team sections must be used in the explanation. After your team completes this, there's a scoring option, so they can use what they have, using their fingertips to their wrists, their fingertips to their elbows, and their fingertips to their shoulder. This is allowing them to use what they have, and it's okay if it's not exact. It's for the practice of doing and using the materials and the different tools that we're not used to using. Have fun with it. Let them be creative. Here's a quick review of the steps used in virtual hands-on spontaneous. So coach, remember to push that record button on that video conference call. That way the team can see their solution later on. The coach then reads the problem. The team creates the solution. Team scores the build part of the solution. Then play back that recording of the team responses. The team then can score themselves as creative or common, and then celebrate the teamwork and creativity. We've brought together a few general helpful tips for spontaneous virtually. During practices, use the tools of the platforms in use to help develop skills. For example, when you're doing a verbal problem and there's thinking time and students are not supposed to be talking, you could mute your team until it's response time. Also, practice not talking over each other. Kids need to learn that sometimes, due to technology, there is a slight delay, and the voice will come over in a few seconds. They just need to wait. During practice, also give extra time to do those spontaneous problems. It's okay to give a little extra time to start out with, and as they get better and practices go on, you can start working back the time. Get comfortable with the platforms your team chooses to use. Also, have them develop a game plan. Every team is different, and they will surely have a way they want to do it. Remind the team that spelling doesn't matter, as long as we know what the words are. Young teams can look into the use of speech to text, so they don't have to type. But if you go this way, be sure to practice and become comfortable with that platform. Also, teams can develop team jobs and decide as a team which person would be the best in those positions. Be sure to find what works for your team. Each team is unique and will have their own way of doing things, in person or virtually. So work with the team. They will have all kinds of ideas. Start by simply asking your team. They're very comfortable online and on the phone. Find the virtual platforms that work for them. Practice using them so the team is very comfortable with the platforms, and the team won't even think about the platforms while they are in use. Find the process that works for your team. We only talked about a couple here, and there are endless possibilities. Remember that you have lots of resources to help. Be sure to check out the multiple websites and social media sites for more tips and information. Be sure to attend coaches training. Also, check out the Spont online lessons being released later this season. They will be found on the State Association websites. Feel free to reach out to Dear Spont Sparker or our State Association directors. We're all here to help. The most important reminder we have is just have fun. Let the teams have fun. Spontaneous is in every aspect of Odyssey, and practicing Spont develops the team's strengths and lets the individual talents shine. We'd like to thank you for your time, for your commitment, and for your passion in this creative process. Be safe and take care.